Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 47 of Stop Who Does That. I'm your host, Jackie.
And I'm your host, Jenna.
We hope everyone is having a great week. We are just coming out of a weekend here. It is Tuesday, August 18th at the time of this recording. Yeah, I can't really remember what I did this weekend.
Last weekend.
But I think I was just trying to relax. Is really what I was doing.
I was in Ocean City, Maryland with Janine and our friend Jen, and we had like a little girls trip, and it was so much fun. Except I was telling you, Jackie, the jellyfish in the water, they were everywhere, with hundreds of them, and people were getting stung, and it was unfortunate. And it was hot as hell. You couldn't really go much in the water unless you wanted to get stung. So that was the only weird part, but other than that, we had a great time. All school starts next week, as I'm sure some of our listeners, their kids are already back to school, and then the rest of us are going back next week or so. So back to school time.
Yeah, I think the southern states, they typically go back pretty early because of like hurricanes.
Yeah, so
impacting
they're
their
probably
school.
already well in swing, but up here we go
Yeah.
back around this time. So it's the kids' last week of summer. It went fast.
It did. Oh my gosh. And we're already in August, almost in September.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll be coming up on our 1 year anniversary before you know it in November. So
We have some special things in store, talking about some special episodes. And we also have another special announcement. Jackie and I are part of the Darkcast network, and several podcasts in our network will be joining the Southern Gothic Media Network. So that is our big special announcement. We will be teaming up and joining Southern Gothic, and that was effective as of August 10th. Stop Who Does That is now part of this larger network, Southern Gothic. We're still Darkcast, but because some of us kind of merged over into this larger network, it's going to bring more opportunities and help us continue to grow. And we want to thank Southern Gothic for this opportunity and Brandon, and we'll be sharing more information as it comes, but we are very excited about this move. It's going to be great for us.
yes, you might start hearing ads during our recordings, and that's just part of the cool things that Southern Gothic is able to bring to us. I don't foresee any interruptions to our feeds. We do have to merge our feeds over to Southern Gothic. But if there's any interruptions in our recordings and when we can launch things, we'll definitely let you know on social media. But I'll be working on that at some point today.
Yeah, it should be pretty seamless. And the podcast we were on the other week, Our True Crime, they're part of Southern Gothic, and there are a bunch of great podcasts on there that we'll be sharing with you guys as well. So it's super exciting, and we're just really happy to be included on this merger.
Yes, we are just onward and upwards from here. And here's your weekly friendly reminder. Please give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. As you know, that helps us in the algorithm. The more you review and rate us, the more the algorithm will push us out to other people as a suggested podcast. It is free. It takes only a couple seconds of your time. Even if you're able to just hit a couple stars, we appreciate that. And
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And today we have a special kind of headline highlights court edition episode with all the major court cases going on right now. Well, the two major ones are Lindsay Clancy and Bryan Kohberger updates. So this episode will be focused on those two court cases.
Yes. I can tell you, Jenna, I don't know about you, but a lot of people have been texting me, asking me about what I think of this Patrick Clancy stuff that is milling about the internet. And to be honest with you, Jenna is the Lindsay Clancy expert here. She's the one that's had more time to follow the case than I had. I'm kind of more of the Idaho 4 expert. It's taking up a lot of headspace in my world, but we are excited to kind of give you some updates and some of our thoughts and things to think about as you hear chatter in the social media TikTok universe. Real quick, before we dive in, I know you guys hate chatter, but Jenna and I were chatting before we started recording, and we had this idea for a series in October, kind of different from true crime, because sometimes reality is scarier than fiction. But we were talking about dating disasters and ghosting. And we were thinking we could do like a ghost week in October where we not only we're not going to talk just about ghosts, because I could talk about ghosts. I am a paranormal investigator as another hobby of mine, but we can talk about dating ghosting and your craziest stories ever that our listeners have experienced. We want you to be able to write in, submit your story of ghosting. You can use initials. You don't have to use real names or anything like that. You can send them to stopwhodosthatpodcast@gmail.com. If you're interested in participating in this little project with us, we will read your ghosting story on.
Yeah, as we get into the spooky season, we want to talk about ghosts other than hauntings and spooky ghosts, real life ghost stories of ghosting. So we're going to do that in October. So write in, we'll keep reminding you about it, but that'll be
starting now through October.
Yeah.
Start sending us your craziest ghosting stories.
Craziest.
Yeah, and we want it in true stop who does that fashion. Like, who would ghost you in the middle of a conversation? I mean, really? Or who would ghost you while you're eating dinner at a restaurant and then they get up to go to the bathroom, they don't come back? Like, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yep.
We want it.
Send them all.
Juicy. All right. Well, Here we go. Here we go. Unless you're living under a rock, by now you've heard about Lindsay Clancy's ongoing trial. We covered her case back in late July, and man, that episode is having a moment. I think it's hit 600 downloads since July.
It's our best. It's one of our best ones ever.
Yeah, and really, we were just kind of recapping the whole story using probable cause affidavit.
Yes, it was the entire court file document.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was the court filing was basically what we use as our source document for that episode to kind of prepare you for the trial. But now that things have come out, we've got some internet sleuths that are really going down the rabbit hole here. And now we're shifting from this is a mom who killed her 3 kids to did her husband do it? So I know I've been getting texts about it, what my thoughts are. So if you haven't seen, Jenna's been posting daily trial updates on our social media. And now we are on day 15 of the trial. As of the recording of this episode, the prosecution is rested after calling nearly 77 witnesses and the defense with Lindsay's attorney, Kevin Reddington, beginning his case now in defense of Lindsay. There are a lot of things we want to discuss with you about our thoughts on Patrick Clancy. Yes, you, Patrick.
And we hate him so much, but we wind up mentioning him in almost every episode that we do. For some reason, his name just comes up. Our most hated man in the world, Bryan Kohberger, is back in the news. Unfortunately, he withdrew his guilty plea on July 26th, that was just last month, after pleading guilty in July of 2025 to the Idaho 4 murders. He was granted permission to obtain new attorneys on August 4th, and we have a lot of thoughts on this as well as how they handle these things in Idaho, the state where this is taking place, where this has happened in the past. So, Jackie, let's get into it.
Yes. So, on July 27th, 2026, Kohberger filed a handwritten petition for post-conviction relief from prison. He is asking to withdraw the guilty plea that he entered July 2025 for the murders of Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana, Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. He is currently serving 4 consecutive life sentences without parole plus 10 years for burglary. You're probably wondering, how do you have the audacity to withdraw a guilty plea when you admitted on camera to the murder of these 4 college young adults and told Judge Stephen Hippler that your pleas were voluntary? I distinctly remember that moment. He said,
Bryan,
are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yeah, we heard you. Yeah. We all heard you. If you were unsure or you felt persuaded at the time to do that,
you could have said yes.
That was the time to speak up, Bryan. Right? You could have said to your lawyers at that time, I feel like you're pressuring me. I don't want to do it. Why did you do it? If you didn't agree, why did you plead that way?
Well, let's read what he wrote, and then I'll tell you what my thoughts are, so I'm reading this handwritten affidavit from Bryan Kohberger in his childish handwriting. It's horrible, guys. It's horrible. Bryan Kohberger, being first duly sworn on oath, deposes and says, "It is hereby declared that during attorney-client discussions, most of which consisted of members of Bryan Kohberger's immediate family, petitioner was convinced to falsely confess to capital murder and felony burglary by coercion, disinformation, false promises, and the withholding of exculpatory discovery. The following is material to the inception of the plea. 1. Counsel's failure to inform petitioner of exculpatory discovery taking place during these discussions, namely clumps of unknown hair found in Ethan Chapin's hands, as well as a failure of further inquiry. 2. Petitioner was concerned that actual guilt was not an important factor in considering the plea acceptance. Death row was imminent and advised to lie. Petitioner was to get a, quote, legal victory in entering a false plea. A gross misrepresentation of and promises regarding 3. A gross misrepresentation of and promise regarding what a life sentence would immediately afford petitioner, and a gross misrepresentation of death row in Idaho, including an elaborate story of counsel's horrific expectations touring an actual 8x8 death row cell, all communicated to the petitioner and his family by the IDOC through counsel, thus constituting thereas and promises made to induce a plea agreement. And then he signs it in his childish signature and dates it July 22nd, 2026. I certify under penalty of perjury, pursuant to the law of state of Idaho, that the foregoing is true and correct. So a lot of people think he didn't know what prison was going to be like. That's not how I read it. How I read it is Ann Taylor probably said to him, if you get death penalty, you're going to be sitting in an 8x8 cell. And I'm telling you, it's not a place you want to be. Like, you can go to regular prison and blah, blah. You can take classes, all these things. But he's finding out, I believe, now that death row doesn't mean you're sitting in an 8x8 cell, and that you still can take courses and things while you're on death row. You're still alone, from what I understand.
Like we learned in the Maternal Instincts documentary with Taylor Parker being on death row in Texas, she's treated better than the other inmates because they are separated from Gen Pop. They have their own cell. They have their own commissary. They get their own clothing, multiple clothing items. So she is treated better on death row, believe it or not. And so I think he's saying that they told him death row would be the worst option, when in reality, it's not that way. And he's saying that he basically was deceived.
Yeah. So what I gather is, and here's the thing, I think Anne had a conversation with the family and was like, listen, this isn't looking good for you. Okay. I know his mommy wanted him to not be killed. We've heard those reports. Okay. Whether they're true or not, I'm sure they're true. What mom would want to see their child killed by the state of Idaho, right? She probably has to grapple with the fact that he could be a murderer, but she's probably not going to want to see him die. So I think she was encouraging him to fight it. And Anne said, look, guys, this isn't looking good. I mean, this is a national sensation. Everyone in the world knows about this case. There's no way he's getting a fair trial at this point. I don't have all the discovery at this point before we head into trial. Because remember, she kept complaining about she didn't have all the discovery. She's like, he might as well plead guilty because, again, that would be a victory, a legal victory. Her job in this case is to not see her client killed. Right. And in her mind, if I can avoid him getting the death penalty, then this is a legal victory. So she said, look, you take the plea, you don't die, you're in a regular prison. And he's trying to say that she manipulated him to take a plea deal, even though he didn't do it, to have this victory in her eyes legally. We talked about this, Jenna. how many people out there are falsely accused of something and they plead guilty anyway because all the evidence is stacked against them, the circumstances are against them, maybe they don't have the money to keep fighting, so they take a plea deal because ultimately it's the lesser of the two evils, right?
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
All the time. I think that he's making a huge mistake here because if it does go back to trial, then the death penalty is back on the table and they'll serve it right up to him 4 times. I mean, he's not getting out of this without death. So I don't know what he's thinking unless he's just bored in prison and he wants to be back out there. He wants more attention. I can't think of another reason why you would want to swap life for the possibility of the death penalty all over again.
I think it's because the way he's living right now is hell on earth, and he'd rather be dead at this point. I'm going to put it bluntly. And a lot of people say he wants to have control. He's such a control freak. He's a manipulator. He's like, all those things may be true, but the reality is, Jenna, if you and I were thrown into prison right now, and we had the option to take the death penalty, sometimes you have to go to prison to see what it's really like and be like, fuck, I don't want to live the rest of my life like this. I'd rather be dead. And I think he'd rather be dead at this point. I do, because I don't see how he was going for a PhD in criminology. He knows enough to know there's no way you're getting out of this alive.
No.
So I think to take it back because he'd rather be dead.
He's trying everything. And there was this document that just came out yesterday that released his psych eval.
Which I have. I have if we want to go over it.
Yeah, with the 4 mental conditions.
But I'm not shocked at any of this. I'm really not.
Honestly, okay, like, you want to talk about mental conditions, which we're about to talk about with Lindsay Clancy? Those were mental conditions. I know these are mental conditions too, but they're nothing that's going to make you have psychosis, like ADHD, for example, autism spectrum disorder, level 1, OCD. These are things people manage every day. These are not mental disorders that's going to make you deranged to commit 4 murders.
I agree. And okay, so real quick, just to get back up to him entering his guilty plea. Okay, we went over that. We read his statement. We put our thoughts in on that. Okay, now where does it stand? So the judge only responded to appoint him a new lawyer at this point. So he does not have Ann Taylor anymore. He has a Moscow attorney, Greg Rausch. He decided to represent him in the post-conviction hearings. As of right now, there has not been a ruling granting Kohberger's request to withdraw his plea. His convictions and life sentences still remain intact. He's literally asking the courts to consider allowing him to remove this plea. I think you guys remember when Judge Hippler was taking his plea, he said, you have no appeals. You can't appeal this. But this isn't legally the ordinary appeal process that Kohberger waived to in his plea agreement. He's actually using Idaho's post-conviction relief process, arguing that his plea was not knowing and voluntary and that he received ineffective assistance of counsel. So that's a harder thing to prove than simply saying, I regret my guilty plea.
Those were the 2 reasons in Idaho that you could withdraw a plea for. It was basically those 2.
Right. And then if he somehow does succeed in this, he can have a new trial and the death penalty is back into play. I do think that's what he wants, to be honest with you. However, as we're going to get into this neuropsych eval, you kind of get more of an insight of who he is as a person. And it really could be his rigidity playing a role in that he thinks he's innocent and he's not going down with this guilty plea because things are black and white in his world. Before I get into the neuropsych eval, I do want to touch on Brian Entin's interview with Cy Ray, who was a defense expert witness regarding cell phone tech. He's like leading expert in his field. He was on Bryan Kohberger's defense team. He was hired by the defense to talk about the cell phone tower data should this have gone to trial. Brian Entin hosted a Zoom call with Cy Ray and the Goncalves family. It was Kaylee's mom, her dad, and her sister, who we all love and adore. Olivia, if you remember from the sentencing, she tore him a new asshole. And if you watch the Idaho 4 Netflix documentary, she was every girl sleuth you've ever met rolled into one. I mean, she was researching the hell out of Bryan Kohberger. She was the one that found some of the Reddit stuff he wrote about the visual snow. She did a deep dive on him, and she knew what to say to get under his skin. And quite frankly, I thought if he could have come across that table and killed her, he would have. Olivia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was very brave in her victim impact statement.
Yeah.
It was very powerful. I just don't think he cared. I mean, like, it was nice to hear her words, and it was a well-written statement, but I don't think he was even listening.
I think with her, though, that was when I saw the real demon in him. I saw it. I saw it come out. I think he would have, because he doesn't like women. And I think it just that alone got under his skin. But anyway, let's talk about the Cyray interview. So the key things that I took away from Bryan Enton's interview, and I was fascinated. If you guys get a chance, go listen to it. Bryan Enton Investigates, wherever you get your podcast. He has the interview on there. So Cyray, he worked for Kohberger's defense team, as I earlier mentioned, as a cell phone data expert. He states that there was cell phone evidence that puts Bryan inside the 1122 King Road residence, specifically the living room, he believes, prior to the murders. Now, again, this guy had access to all the cell phone data. He had access to all 4 victims, as well as Bryan Kohberger, and his job was, he was trying to triangulate, like, where could these people have been in the same area at the same time?
He was going in there. I think he was breaking into the home and scoping it out. If maybe sometimes it was in the middle of the night. Maybe sometimes it was during a huge party. No one knows for sure.
Well, he could have easily gone in there during a party and nobody would have known.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure they would have been like, who is this guy? Does anybody know him? But he very well could have.
That he and Maddie's phones pinged at the same location.
Yes.
Multiple times.
Yes, at a corner store, like a gas station in the area.
He was probably stalking her.
That's what they're thinking. And then when Cy brought this up, Kaylee's mom, oh my gosh, she was just horrified. She's like, that makes me sick to my stomach that he was in their house before this went down. Like, they were being stalked. And she kept going on and on saying, like, they must have been so scared. And that just killed me as a mother. It's like, to know that your kid was being stalked prior to all this is just
the new Netflix documentary that just came out like 2 weeks ago does a really good job with the body cam footage and hearing Dylan and Bethany, the 2 surviving roommates, speak. I mean, they were fucking scared. Like, you can hear it in their voice. Like, their voice was shaking. They were absolutely scared out of their mind. So it's like, it was just truly terrifying. And it's a good documentary if you haven't seen it. It was the best one that I've watched so far.
Well, now that we have more details, for sure. So he also tracked that Bryan and I believe it was Maddie, their phones were in close proximity on the campus of University of Washington sometime in August. So remember, the murders happened in November. So at the beginning of the school year, Maddie was on the University of Washington's campus. Now, Xana's sister does attend, or did attend, I'm not sure if she's still attending, University of Washington. So Xana's sister probably saw Bryan Kohberger walking around campus, not even thinking, eventually this is the man that's going to kill my sister, right? Like, how chilling is that? But is it possible that there was a party going on and that is when he set eyes on Maddie? Because they truly believe Maddie was the target. Because Kaylee had already moved out at that point, and there's just no way he would have known that Kaylee was going to be in town that weekend.
I think his whole plan was foiled.
And then he went straight upstairs. Even the Goncalves family believes that as well. And I would agree. Now, here's where it gets interesting, okay? So for Bryan Kohberger's claim that he pled guilty due to coercion or ineffective counsel, the only true way for that to meet the burden of proof in a courtroom, or to be approved, if you will, is if his attorney admits, yes, I agree, I did not provide effective counsel. Okay. That is truly the only way this could happen. And you're probably thinking, what attorney would actually admit to doing a poor job? Well, Cy Ray informs us, and again, Cy Ray worked very closely with Ann Taylor, working on the defense's side. He said that Ann Taylor has been visiting Bryan behind bars even after he took the plea deal. So she has been seeing him on a pretty regular basis since July of last year. Does that sound like their relationship is not doing so well? He's now publicly coming out and saying she was ineffective and scared the shit out of him.
If you're that dissatisfied with your lawyer, why would you be taking visits from them? I would think you would wash your hands of them and be like, I'm done with you. You screwed me over. You were a horrible attorney.
Right.
Why would you allow visits from them?
Now, Cy Ray also says he thinks that Ann has an unhealthy relationship with Bryan.
Ew.
He believes that she truly believes Bryan is innocent and that she has like this motherly relationship with him.
Gross.
So he sets the scene, Cy. He says, hey, remember the last thing Ann Taylor said before the courtroom, before they took a plea deal, is that she could not effectively represent her client without all of the discovery. I do remember watching that hearing, and I remember her saying many times, like, I cannot effectively represent my client. I can't effectively defend him if I don't have all of the discovery. He feels she was setting the stage for a future argument against effective counsel. So think about it. Bryan's now saying she wasn't effective. You've got her on record years prior, saying, I don't think I can effectively represent my client without all this discovery. He thinks that she was setting the stage for this future argument against effective counsel because she's going to fall on her sword.
So this was all premeditated, set up.
I think all the meetings that have been happening between her and Bryan in the last year were them planning this. I do. And he thinks that she's going to fall on her sword. She's going to admit in front of a courtroom, I was not effective for Bryan, so he can get his plea reversed and go to trial.
If she does that, the judge will most likely agree.
Yeah, because if she's admitting it.
If it's coming straight from the lawyer. Yeah, I couldn't agree.
It has to come straight from the lawyer, really, to prove it.
Yeah. So she's going to go in front of the judge. She's going to say this. And then what's the judge going to say to that? They're most likely going to have to be like, well, all right, then we'll start trial all over again. Then
the Goncalves family was saying like, oh, well, the prosecutors, they were saying that we don't need to worry about this. And he's like, I don't know about that. Ray was like, I would not be so sure.
I agree. I think, in my personal opinion, I think the judge is going to allow the withdrawal. I just have a feeling this was in the works for a long time, and this case is never going away. It's just, I feel bad for all the families involved. This is going to have to go to trial if that's the direction it goes. And can you imagine, Jackie, how long that trial would be? Months.
Well, the Goncalves family says bring it on. Like, we want him dead. We want him to get the death penalty. He's not going to win this. And the more and more I heard Cy Ray presenting the cell phone data, the more and more I became convinced, like, who else could this have been?
Right.
And, by the way, to address the hair in Ethan Chapin's hand, Bryan, I believe it was Bryan Enton that asked if we knew the story about that. And Kaylee's mom said she did ask the coroner about that, or she asked someone at the police station about that hair in Ethan Chapin's hand. And the way it was described to her was Ethan's hand fell behind the bed, and you got like dust bunnies back there. You've got all these random things that, I mean, seriously, in my house, there's dog hair everywhere on the floor behind my bed. There's all kinds of like my hair even. They said that hair, it wasn't a clump. She said it was like baby one hair. And yes, it's unidentified, but it also could have been a former occupant of the house. It could have been anybody that was there for a party.
Just like the West Coast video murders when they found that diamond earring.
Yeah.
Could it have been from the perpetrator? Yeah. Could it have also been dropped from somebody at the video store that was like a patron? Yeah. So same thing. I mean, that could have been somebody who was over in that room. It could have been one of Xana's friends' hairs. Like,
right.
I mean, as a woman, you're shedding hair all the time. So it could have been anyone who was ever in Xana's room.
Right. So when you put it that way, it doesn't sound as like a gotcha.
No, it doesn't.
However, I think the lengths they took to identify the DNA on the knife sheath they should have taken to identify the hair
Mhm.
to like airtight slam dunk. Oh, it was another student it was another student there, and it was a female or something. And there's a reasonable explanation for this hair. Granted, the hair DNA isn't going to show in CODIS because whoever this is doesn't have a record.
Yeah, if they would have done that, now they didn't. Now that's leaving doubt.
And now that's leaving Bryan open up to be like, well, whose is it? And some people on the internet were saying, well, it's not as important as the DNA on a knife sheath, which is the murder weapon used to kill somebody. But I'm like, but this is a piece of hair in somebody's hand.
It's equally as important in my opinion.
Exactly. Even if it turns out to just be a benign source, you still should have identified it.
It's the same
server that you used to find out who Bryan Kohberger was.
That's so unfortunate that they left that loose thread. I mean, that if that wasn't there, like, it would be a slam dunk for sure. I mean, but at this point, like, the knife sheath is more physical evidence than an unidentified hair, but that the unidentified hairs, if just because it's there, it gives that reasonable doubt.
Right. And so just to go quickly into the psych eval, which I know we want to get into Lindsay Clancy. I know that's why you're all here, but entertain me for a minute. So they released the psych eval, which I believe I read about a year ago. And I don't think it's much different, to be honest with you. There are some redacted elements to it, so it's not like the full complete thing. But the gist of it is this clinical neuropsychologist, Dr. Rachel Orr, she evaluated Bryan Kohberger many times while he was behind bars to figure out what his diagnoses are. And she interviewed many people, even Dr. Catherine Ramsland, who is that criminal profiler at Sales University, who he adored, apparently. He interviewed her. He interviewed every member of his family, pretty much, all his sisters, his mom. He got a backstory, like what was he like as a kid? How did he handle things in life? That sort of thing. So it looks like she interviewed Bryan 6 times. His mom 3 times, dad twice, and then the sisters twice as well. So, and I will tell you this, someone in my family had a neuropsych eval, and they did ask me to complete elements of their report based on like what I observed of them as a child.
That's interesting.
They do have to understand you as a child, even though you're an adult, to see like, well, how much of this behavior continues into your adulthood. So here we go. The diagnoses that she came up with were autism, ADHD, ARFID, which is avoidant restrictive eating. It's actually comorbid in a lot of people with autism. They have like issues with textures. They're very picky about their food, which he was. Remember, he was a vegan.
But he was very thin.
Yeah. Obsessive compulsive disorder with absent insight. So I would imagine that means he doesn't even think he has OCD. And then diagnoses for which he met criteria in the past, meaning maybe in the past when he was a kid or 10, 15 years ago, he had it, but now it's in remission. Developmental coordination disorder, anorexia nervosa, the binge eating purging type, unspecified depressive disorder, and opioid use disorder, which we know he's in remission. He's got clean. He was classified as autism spectrum disorder level 1 without accompanying intellectual or language impairment. So his IQ is probably average or above average and no language impairment. So there are some autism individuals who are nonverbal. So he doesn't have any of that. So he's probably like considered high functioning autistic at this point, which I would agree with. I mean, he's able to go to school. He's able to kind of pass as normal.
Like, be real. These are classified as mental disorders, but these are not. He doesn't have bipolar. He doesn't have schizophrenia. He doesn't have
sociopathy,
dissociative, like, personality disorder. None of those. So many people have OCD and ADHD and food eating problems. Like, that doesn't mean you're going.
Gonna go kill people.
So what was going on in his mind? There is something else in his mind that made him. Now, maybe he had this fascination on Maddie that was driving.
So the Goncalves family did say they learned about his porn history, and it was very much violent fantasies involving women. And Olivia even mentioned in the Bryan Enton interview that it involved men as well. So
that's right. I did listen to that interview.
Yeah.
I remember that part.
He had this like fetish for SA.
I think he went to the house to do that to Maddie, to live out his fantasies with Maddie. And when Kaylee was there and maybe Xana heard a noise and everything went to shit.
Yeah. So if you want to know some of her observations of Bryan, this kind of gives you like more insight of who he is as a person. There's like a list here of like observations she's made of him, and she gives examples of things he did when she was around him. This is funny. So, test administration was conducted across several days for several hours at a time, aside from restroom breaks. Bryan requested specific time blocks in the middle of the day, generally 1 to 1.5 hours, to engage in recreation time or calisthenics. I mean, I don't blame him. It's probably the only hour you get to go outside and exercise. As he noted, limited opportunity to engage in such behaviors that day, if not performed during that specific time period. And she puts, i.e., he did not want to break his routine. Bryan often discussed his preferred routine and specific time frames in great detail, including frequently referring to things he needed to get done during the day. What do you have to do in prison?
He probably had routines like wash, get up, wash his hands, straighten his slippers, and he went through the same routine every morning in the same procedure.
Right. I know.
So that routine, even though it was so minimal as like putting the bedding away or putting his book organizing his books, like he probably did the same thing one after the next in the same order every day, and he could not break that order or he would freak out,
mentally crumble.
Yeah.
That, I think that's like the OCD. Like he has to do it, and the rigidity that comes with autism. Like you have to do it that time and no other time. She also notes that he rocks his body, his upper torso while he's seated, or if he's engaged in a cognitive task. So he's like kind of does one of these, which I thought I saw during the sentencing. He kind of would like rock a little bit. He paces a lot. She said he abruptly had to use the restroom one time and said that it was very urgent and that the urge to urinate crept up on him and that he was concerned he might not make it while waiting for jail staff. On these occasions, Bryan provided no indication prior to such urgency that he needed to use the restroom. Okay. She observed his hands to be red, chapped, and possibly swollen bilaterally during most sessions. Worst in October 2024. On all mornings, he used petroleum jelly, and then they slowly began to get better by January 2025. His affect. So what we saw during sentencing where he just is like stone faced, right? She said he has a restrictive range of facial expressions with a stoic effect at baseline. Smiles were often slight, though there were few occasions of notable brightening. At times, smiles occurred in unusual or incongruent contexts. Inconsistent social smiling is usually absent, did not smile at times when expected or during instances of humor, and in fact, he often furrowed his eyebrows during more light conversations, which contributed to awkward engagement and incongruent nonverbal communication overall. There was no evidence of tearfulness, no overt indicators of anxiety or anger. He did express mild frustration during my first visit in October, when an inmate was yelling during a portion of the cognitive testings, which reportedly impacted his concentration. Some typical social behavior was seen in Bryan's fairly consistent, though intense, eye contact, polite demeanor, and social conventions such as shaking hands. Such behavior seemed routinized. Bryan also made clear attempts to ask questions about others at times, but often the questions were about very specific details of topics that had been discussed previously. On a few occasions, he made positive comments about my educational attainment, but he was never overtly inappropriate. So, frequent atypical social behavior that was evident includes lack of descriptive or emphatic gestures, atypical speech tone and cadence, awkward interaction, lack of fluidity, awkward delivery of humor at times, such as carrying on with a joke longer than expected, awkward comments like, I had a lot of fun doing the cognitive test, I don't know that that's really awkward. Inconsistent understanding or acknowledgement of humor. Poor reciprocity of interaction, including very frequent refocus of conversation back to his own experiences. So making it about him. Reduced social quality at times without awareness through matter-of-fact comments, such as replying firmly, "I'll tell you when I'm done," when prompted for anything else during cognitive measures. Unusual observations he made during testing and occasional intense gaze. So he's like this all the time.
I'm not surprised. I mean, I don't think you need a whole study to figure to see that. Like he's just an odd person.
He's autistic. He's on the spectrum. I mean, we've all met somebody on the spectrum that's high functioning. On the surface, they seem like normal, everyday people, but there's something a little off about them or a little awkward about them. And I think that he really wanted a girlfriend. He tried dating so many times and he just he didn't know how to carry himself. He didn't know how to interact with girls. And we know how girls can be. We can be mean. And I think he got told to go away many times. He got ghosted. I'm sure he got ghosted.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a lot of frustration. Like, nobody wants me. He's watching porn, which we all know is damaging.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe he interacted with Maddie. Maybe he didn't. But there was just something about her that I think
is always going to bother me the most about this case is that we'll never know the truth because they're all gone.
Right.
I would love to know the truth of what made him target Maddie. Did they ever talk? Did she reject him? Or did he just admire her from afar like a regular stalker?
Right.
That's my question that I would say out of all the questions of this case, that's the one that always bothers me the most. I'd love the answer to, but I mean, if it does go to trial, I feel like it might come out.
Yeah, and she says he doesn't have any acute delusional ideas or distortions of reality. I mean, I don't know that he would have lived in a fantasy world where he and Maddie were together. And I think this was really, he had she says he lacks impulse control. So I think it was an impulse, a sexual impulse that he couldn't ignore, that he was watching in his pornography and he wanted to act out.
And he wanted to do it with her.
I think she looks so sweet and innocent and she's tiny. And I think he thought, well, she'd be an easy target. I mean, I hope I'm not being disrespectful to anyone when I say that, but like, unfortunately, those of us who are like small, petite women, and Jenna and I I think we kind of are easy targets because we're so tiny. And
I also think he was obsessed. He was just also obsessed with her. I mean, he could have been thinking about her every day and stalking her. And if this all happens the way he and Anne think it's going to happen, then it will go to trial and we will find out potentially even more information than any of us have known in the last 7 years.
All right. Well, I don't want to take up any more time with this one. We probably could go on for even longer.
Yeah. So we'll keep watching it. And when there's more updates, we'll do another update. Okay. So the Lindsay Clancy trial. So we covered Lindsay Clancy's case in the middle of July, right before she went to trial. Her trial began on July 20th. So it's been going on over 3 weeks and we're now at day 15 of her trial. I have been watching the trial. I've been tuning in several times a day. I have seen many witnesses from Patrick, his mother, Lindsay's mother, physician's assistants, counselors, doctors. Her friend took the stand. I've seen it all. And things are shifting now as we have heard from these witnesses, and what they're saying paints a very loving picture of Lindsay as a wonderful mother. She was struggling with her mental health, as we talked about in our episode, with all the medications she was on and the insomnia and the postpartum depression. That is coming out, that is true. She had postpartum depression. She was on meds. She wasn't sleeping.
I feel like we should all be able to agree to that by now after listening to all of this, even from the prosecution standpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, she had postpartum depression.
She did, and no one's denying that. But her attorney, Kevin Reddington, he retired last year in 2025. He's come out of retirement to take this case pro bono for her. Yeah, and he is an amazing attorney. He reminds me of Alan Jackson.
Mhm.
He slowly but surely has been peeling back every layer of this case like an onion, just peeling it back, slowly exposing things to the jury and to the public. And I think Lindsay is beginning to understand what happened. Patrick, her husband, was the first to take the stand. And as soon as I saw him testify, even before all of the internet sleuths came out doing their own sleuthing, I thought that he fucking reminds me of Chris Watts. He is so smug. He's so arrogant. The way he was speaking, I just got a really bad feeling about it. And lo and behold, I wasn't the only one. There are many other people out there, Jackie, that have been dissecting the timelines and everything he's saying. And the biggest one being, we touched on this in our episode, is that he remarried. He had a new girlfriend almost 4 months after the murders.
And moved to New York.
And I found out he actually started this he was working in New York City in 22.
Right, October.
So he was...
Remind you, the murders happened in end of January 23. It looked like on his LinkedIn page, he listed New York, a New York workplace.
So he had been going there. So the whole time Lindsay's suffering with her depression and psychosis, he's going on to New York City for the weekend to do work events and work stuff and stuff with his friends. But the woman who he wound up marrying, Rachel Dennis, she worked in New York City too. She was a doctor, a fertility doctor. So it also, I found out in my research, they knew each other for many years before this.
Really?
Yes. And I'm loosely piecing together what I read. And this is not straight facts. This is just things I've been reading, that they had dated long ago, like 10, 12 years long ago.
Do we know this for sure?
I don't know this for sure. This is just what I've read from different sites
going around the internet.
Yeah, this isn't from a cited source. This is from some pieces I've been reading, that they did know each other before and it didn't work out. And people are saying basically like that this was kind of like the love that he lost of his life, and that Lindsay looks like Rachel. It's not Rachel looks like Lindsay. People were saying Lindsay looks like Rachel. And Rachel was like so people are saying that. Now, I don't know if that's confirmed to be true, but it is interesting. I also read talking about Patrick. This is confirmed through Facebook postings that 1 month after the murders, so February 2023, Patrick was in Costa Rica doing a hike and a race.
Yes.
That is confirmed. And there was another group of women there that was in Costa Rica in February of 2023. And there were pictures on Facebook of a group of 4 women. And one of the women in the picture was Rachel Dennis.
I did. I saw that. You sent that to me, and then I fact checked it, and it is correct. Like,
it's correct.
That account does exist, and those pictures are there, but Rachel took her social media down.
Yeah. So they were both there 1 month after the murders. Now, if he did it or Lindsay did it, it doesn't matter at this point. Like, I don't think if your 3 children were killed, you would be going to Costa Rica on a hiking trip 30 days later. I just don't think you could probably even function. So that to me is, even if Lindsay did do this, like, that's super disturbing that this man could go on a vacation 1 month after his children were killed.
Now, I will say this. My friend's mom passed away a few months ago, and we took him to a comedy show 2 weeks after she passed to cheer him up. And we're like, laughter's the best medicine. She wouldn't want you to be sad.
It's different.
Right.
It's like going out with friends.
Yeah.
But I see
versus like your children.
Yeah. Three. So these things started coming out, and people started looking into the timeline and looking into the CCTV footage of him at the CVS and him at the 3V restaurant. And people were saying that doesn't look like him at the CVS. And furthermore, he's wearing baggy jeans and boots at CVS, but at 3V, he's wearing skinny jeans and like loafers or sneakers. It was sneakers, boots and baggy jeans.
I did see that.
And sneakers and skinny jeans.
Yeah.
And people are saying, what's up with that?
What's the difference in time between those two?
Yeah, I have a timeline here. So let's see.
I love that you have the timeline.
Let me reference this timeline. Okay,
Yeah.
3V. Okay, 5:32 p.m. on January 24th. Surveillance footage shows Patrick at the CVS on Summer King Street in Kingston, where he went to the children's medication aisle. That's at 5:32. At 5:33, Patrick called Lindsay. She didn't answer. At 5:34, Lindsay called him back, and the call lasted 14 seconds. That's at 5:34. He didn't know what medication to get. At 5:37, he made the purchase at the register. At 5:54, he went to 3V. So that's
5:54. Okay.
So 5:37, he made the purchase. 5:54. So that's about 15-ish minutes later. He was seen on surveillance footage at 3V waiting in line to pick up the food.
So, where's their house in relation to CVS?
3 minutes away from CVS.
And they found the CVS bag
on
with
the
kids' plates on top of it. Theoretically, he could have gone home and changed.
He said the kids were eating when he left. The takeout food was just for them. He said the kids were eating dinner when he left to go to
So it sounds like to me he might have been leaving out the part where he went home in between CVS and picking up takeout.
Yeah, and it almost to me seemed like he was lying when he said they were eating because the trays were clean. It looked like the trays were on the counter like ready to be plated because they were clean. So it looks like he went home, put the CVS bag on the counter, and then the trays were kind of put on the counter. One got a little bit on top of the bag, like maybe she was going to plate their food. And then he went to get the takeout food. When he came back from getting the takeout food, it was 6 p.m. when he came back. So he got the food at 5:54, but he came back at 6. So 3V was 3 minutes away. I don't know about that.
I think he's leaving out the part where he came home because let's assume he goes to CVS, then he goes straight to 3V, comes home. That's when all hell breaks loose because then he notices what happened. How did the plates get on top of the CVS bag? Like, was he cleaning up? That's the only thing I can think is just giving him the benefit of the doubt. Like, he put the bag down, saw the plates, kind of moved them, but why would you move them on top of the bag?
Well,
you'd put them in the dishwasher or something. Like, I don't.
So then at 6:09, he called her cell phone looking for the family. So he came home at 6 and you're not calling till 6:09?
9 minutes where you can't find anyone?
So that's strange to me because on the stand, he said he pulled into the driveway. He
didn't see
her car because it was dark and her car was black, although their driveway was small. So he either had to park adjacent to her car or behind her car. So yeah, you would have seen it was a big black minivan. You would have seen it. So you had to go past it to go to the front door. Anyway, so he said
it was factually there, right? The car.
I saw the crime scene photos. Yeah. So he said that when he pulled in, he went right in the house. He didn't see anyone and started calling out for their name. And then he found her in the backyard. But this is saying that he did not call her phone or call out the names until 6:09. But he said on the stand, he went right in the house. He also said on the stand that when he found her in the backyard, she said, quote, "I tried to kill myself and jump out the window." But the first responders said when they arrived on the scene, she couldn't speak. Her trachea was compressed and her back was broken and her throat was slashed. The EMTs said the woman could not talk.
Well, I would say working in medicine, there are situations where you can have somebody that's talking and everything, and then shit goes south very quickly. So I'm just saying, benefit of the doubt here, she could have been able to converse with him at that moment, and then maybe more fluid build up in her throat or what have you. You can decompensate very quickly.
then that goes along with that her body temperature was 82 degrees, which if she was left outside in the cold, it would take a lot longer than 20 minutes.
I agree.
To drop the temperature that significantly.
However, if she lost a good amount of blood, you actually can. Your body temperature can drop. Yeah.
That's a good point.
But to that low, I don't know, but.
So he said that the bedroom door was locked and he couldn't get in. He said that when he came home, the bedroom door was locked and he had to use an emergency key to get inside. But I'm sorry, I'm a small woman, and like, if my spouse or child was in a locked room, I'd freaking kick the door down. Who has time to go find the emergency key, Jackie?
I don't even know where I would find an emergency key.
I don't either.
Jenny.
I don't know about you, but like, doors to bedrooms are pretty flimsy. I mean, I could bust one down right now. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
I could kick a door down inside the house, like, no problem, and I'm a small person. So I'm sure a man could have easily busted down the door. So I thought that was weird, that he said I had to go get the the key to unlock the door. It's not established who locked the door either. Why would she lock herself in the bedrooms? It's just that there's another thing that came out that was not, they didn't call this witness, but when her body was on the ground outside, a neighbor saw her laying there at 5:50 p.m. And that neighbor was never called to testify. So the neighbor said that he saw her at 5:50. It's just not, the timeline is not like.
And he left to get, what time was he on camera getting the food?
5:54. And the restaurant was only a few minutes from the house.
So I think he might be hiding the fact he came home in between.
I think if he did this, if he allegedly did this, he could have come home, killed her, then went to get the food, and then killed the kids. There's also theories that he killed the older two kids, went to CVS, came home, killed her, went to get the food, and then came home and did the baby.
I don't know. So essentially what internet sleuths are alleging is that he's gaslit her into thinking she did this.
And if you've read any novels, like our women listeners out there, if you
Freida McFadden,
The Housemaid, hello, it sounds like a page off the freaking Housemaid book. Like,
it does,
where he tried to make the wife insane, and the whole community started believing she was insane. And she was like, anything she tried, they would just put her right back to the mental hospital. Right. And she just couldn't get away from this man. He was tormenting her. If this is true and he masterminded this whole plan, then that's it. It's plausible. We've all read about it in books. And, I feel like I personally believe he was cheating on her with Rachel Dennis.
I think something was up there. I don't think he was entirely faithful, let's be honest. And just because he was unfaithful doesn't mean he's a killer.
No, but who else was unfaithful that wanted a fresh start? Chris Watts. Who else killed their two kids and pregnant wife? Chris Watts. And he wanted to start a new life with Nicole Kessinger, and he just thought, I'll just get rid of my old family and start a new one. And I think Patrick Clancy, it's plausible that he was doing the same thing, except it didn't work because Lindsay survived. And then he had to tell her, look what you did. You killed our kids. And she's on so many meds, and she has memory loss. She has brain fog. She's here. Her mind is all over the place. So, I mean, if he'd been gaslighting her and emotionally abusing her for years, why wouldn't she believe him? I know you're saying, well, how could you believe something you didn't do? A, you would if you were manipulated and gaslighted your whole marriage. And B, she was on so many drugs. Combine those two things, I think it's plausible she would have believed him. And he's saying, you killed our kids.
Well, what did she say when she woke up from the coma in the hospital?
That she wanted him removed from her power of attorney. She wanted him off.
She did.
Yeah, I believe she did ask about the kids, and then she immediately wanted him off of all of her stuff. Now, why would that be your first response? I also watched.
They said they thought the thought process was he was so mad at her for what she did to the kids that she wanted him off as power of attorney in case he like wanted her dead or something.
Well, I think he did want her dead. I think,
Yeah.
but, and then, so she
did ask for an attorney, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I watched her facial expressions when he took the stand, and it looked like pure fear. Like her lips were quivering. She could barely catch her breath. She looked scared. I just think that when this whole thing happened and he called 911, and there's conflicting reports with that too, he just wasn't investigated. Basically, the detectives and the police department, they just took his word for it, Jackie. He was like, I came home from getting takeout. My wife was on the ground. The kids were dead. She did it. And when they checked the surveillance footage, they said, oh, his story checks out. He had an alibi. He's telling the truth.
But the nanny cam in the house was off.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi was off. And
we know if it was working the day before.
Yes. I read for a fact that was the only day, January 24th, that it was not working. And he hadn't sent an email from his Microsoft laptop at 5:24 p.m. And if that comes to be verified to be true, that's not lining up with the timeline, because at 5:24, he would have been almost on his way to CVS.
Well, wait, he was on camera at CVS at what time?
5:32, 5:24, he would have had to send it and leave immediately. But he said on the stand, so he said in his sworn statement that day that he had sent an email from his Microsoft Surface Pro, which is a laptop. But on the stand, he said, I can't remember if it was sent from the Surface Pro or my phone.
Which I don't know how you don't remember.
Sure, they can check it unless he erased all that shit, because they never investigated him. So, I'm sure they could fact check it. But
wouldn't you know for sure you were in the car at that point?
Yeah.
Right.
And so there's just been many of these inconsistencies from what he said. And he talked about the blood in the bedroom. And I saw the photo of the knife supposedly used to cut her wrists and throat. It was placed perfectly on a nightstand table, Jackie, perfectly straight up and down with the blade facing to the right. And I mean straight as a ruler. I saw it. And I'm thinking, if you're slitting your throat, wouldn't you slit your throat and then just drop that shit on the floor and then jump out the window? You're going to slit your wrists and throat, and then you're going to put it on the table perfectly straight? I don't think that makes sense.
I don't know. That's much of a smoking gun for me as the timeline.
Right.
And him changing his clothes. That's just weird.
He also described the blood in the bedroom they asked him what it looked like, and he said it looked sprayed from a hose. But people are saying that is an odd statement, because when you go in, you would just say there was blood everywhere. There was blood droplets all over the floor, or the bed was covered in blood. But to say it looked sprayed like a hose, some internet sleuths are saying that was his subconscious mind recalling when he slit it and it started spraying.
Maybe. I don't know. I think for me, it comes down to the timeline, and also going up to Costa Rica so soon.
Yeah, that
afterwards, and this girl in the picture.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to tread lightly, because we also say that Scott Peterson, even though he had a mistress, may not have killed Lacey. So again, being a cheater doesn't make you a murderer. I don't know where to go with this case, other than I want to see how this plays out now that he's going to be cross-examined.
Also, his DNA was the only DNA on the exercise bands. Why, if she did it, why wasn't her DNA on those bands?
I thought it was. I thought hers was. No, I thought it wasn't. It wasn't a good source for DNA.
But the only DNA that was picked up was his. I read that for a fact.
Okay.
So to me personally, that creates enough reasonable doubt in my mind. You're saying she did this 3 times and not one speck of a fingerprint is on there, but his are. I know he's going to claim, oh, because I untied the knots. Well, yeah, you
Yeah.
did. But if she was the one holding the bands down for 4 minutes per child, you would think there would be one print to come. Just there's not even one. 4 minutes per band per child, and there's no print.
Right.
To me, that doesn't add up.
Unless his prints overrode hers and like disrupted it. I don't know. That's weird.
I do want to briefly read the takeout order because Jackie knows I was like really trying to find out what they ordered from 3V. Just because I don't know why, I just had some like fascination with it. So
yeah, you really have.
They did. So at 5:06, they talked about what they were going to order. And Lindsay said she was going to get the Mediterranean Power Bowl. And Patrick ordered the scallop and pork belly risotto. And that's what he picked up. I feel so much better knowing that. It was like, really, I tried so hard. Jackie knows. I tried so hard to find it. I finally found it. So that's the takeout order. And this trial is going to go on for another, and my guess would be another 2 weeks because we're on day 15 and the defense just started and they're going to be calling their own witnesses. And I'd be interested to see when they get Patrick back up there what may or may not happen. Lindsay's attorney is very good and we'll see how this plays out. And I'm sure we will do another update when the trial is over. In my mind, personally, I think there's enough reasonable doubt and enough to point to she wasn't in the right mind, even if she did do it. It's just too much. There's too much involved in this case. I don't think she should go to actual jail. If she did this and she was insane at the time, she should get the help that she needs.
Well, remember, we talked about, is her attorney's job right now to prove that she was in a psychosis when she committed these acts? Or can he actually try to prove that she wasn't the person who did it at all?
Yeah, and we looked it up, and believe it or not, he can do both. He can. It is possible. He can argue both.
Yeah.
There's enough that the signs point to she was mentally unstable and her meds were overdone and all of that. And then he can also go on the angle of there is too much reasonable doubt that to hold her criminally responsible for this.
Yeah.
And I do believe that he's going to do that. I think he's going to go for both. I think he's just getting started.
Yeah, because my thought is, if she didn't do it, wouldn't her attorney, prior to all this, have been trying to find a way to get her out of it? But if he is allowed to also position probable doubt, or reasonable doubt that she was the one who did it at all. I believe we looked it up and it was the two things he has to prove is she the person who did this and was she in a psychosis at the time?
Yes.
And remember, guys, she doesn't, even if she's found not guilty by reason of insanity, I think a lot of people get hung up on the word not guilty. It doesn't mean she's not guilty. It means she was in a psychosis and was not able to know right from wrong when it happened. And she's stating that this male voice told her she had to do it.
Well, that's a whole nother thing we could go on and on about. The male voice. Everybody is now saying, well, was that Patrick? Was his voice tormenting her for years? And was he was that his voice when she was laying outside saying, you killed the kids, you killed the kids? Was that what she was hearing?
Yeah.
I think this is a landmark case. If Reddington does go that angle, I think we're going to see something that we have never seen before in a trial. And that's why
for this many people to be going off the rails, it really makes you wonder what the jury is thinking right now.
Well, and we talked about Casey Anthony. We know she did. We didn't feel this way about Casey Anthony.
No.
Like she did that. Like everybody knew she did it. She was a cold bitch. Like selfish, partying, lying, manipulating. She did that. She just got off because to her advantage, there was no physical evidence.
Right.
And the jury was like, well, we can't convict with no evidence, no physical evidence. This is so different because people are really feeling empathetic for Lindsay's position with the postpartum and the 3 children and an absent husband. It's really touching a lot of women to think this mother she just wouldn't do it. Everyone's saying she was a loving mother. She was a good mother. She did everything for those kids. It's going to be very interesting to watch this play out. I think it's going to go for the rest of the month, the trial.
You just want to know what the jury's thinking, because if this many people are starting to be like, they're watching it and they're following it, and then they're like, wait, did he do it? Did he convince her that she did it? I wonder if this is what Reddington wanted all along. However, people are saying, even Reddington is saying, no, Lindsay did it. She admitted that. My clients admitted that. We're not trying to say she didn't do it. It's just proving that she was delusional when she did it. So, but I don't know. This is going to be interesting.
It's going to be very interesting, and we're going to keep watching. I'll keep posting on the social media updates from the trial. And when it's all said and done, we'll get back on here and we'll talk about it, because it's no matter how this ends, it's going to be a controversy.
Yeah. And just keep in mind, if she's found not guilty by reason of insanity, she goes to a mental institution under involuntary control, whereby she stays until they deem her ready to re-enter society. And that could be 1 year, that could be 5 years, that could be 40 years. Okay. So it's not like she's getting off on this if she's found not guilty by reason of insanity. Richard Griest, he was in prison for over 40 years before they let him out for killing his pregnant wife and stabbing his child and his grandmother. And he was just sitting there eating lunch and lost his mind. Thought demons were there. So, I mean, delusions can occur.
Yeah, they didn't say
at very
demons.
random times. Yeah,
they definitely didn't mention demons, though, as we know that's...
No, but she was hearing this voice. So, I mean, that is part of a delusion.
Yeah.
It can happen that quickly. Believe it or not, it can happen that quickly. So, again, everything that we're saying today is just thought exercises. We're just recapping a lot of what social media is saying and trying to tease out what could be plausible, what could not. And always remember, everyone grieves differently. Just want to throw that out there. But I don't know if I personally would be going to Costa Rica after my 3 children were
Let us
murdered,
know what you think. Message us and send us some comments. We would love to know your thoughts. We got a lot of requests to talk about this. So now that we did, let us know if there's anything else you want us to cover.
All right. Yep. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.
Bye.